Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Humans in AI podcast. This is the podcast where we dive into the real life stories of the top leaders and entrepreneurs within the artificial intelligence, high performance computing, and data center space. These people truly are at the top of their game. We're going to have honest and authentic conversations with all our guests. We're going to chat about their career journeys, the highs and the lows, and even the lessons they've learned from the mistakes they've made and the victories they've celebrated along the way. It's all about sharing their experience and their knowledge and how they see the future of the space they're in. So if you're looking for practical advice from people who've walked the same path as you, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you stay tuned and don't miss out. Hi there, Amar. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Very good, very good. Thank you very much for finding time in your busy schedule, traveling to see me. So that's really appreciated. For the benefit of everybody watching and listening, Amar, do you mind just giving me a quick introduction of who you are, your role, and a bit more about the organization, if that's okay?
Yeah, I'm Amar Kapadia, co-founder and CEO at Aarna.ml. Aarna.ml is a software company. We create a software called GPU Cloud Management Software. And the idea is that there are lots and lots of GPU as a service AI cloud providers mushrooming all over the world. And they need help in terms of hyperscaler grade features so that they can offer self-service, on-demand, bare metal, virtual machine, or container instances, GPU instances to their customers. And that's where we help them. We provide that software so they can offer that layer to their customers in turn.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that intro. So a little bit later in the conversation, we'll talk more detail and obviously those solutions that you solve. So, but obviously this is as much about your organization as it is about you. So you obviously had a very full career, obviously living in America. I think you did your master's or a degree in the States as well, I think, if memory serves.
Yes. I got my master's in Berkeley, in University of California, Berkeley. And then I literally got into a rental car, drove to the South Bay, and I've been there ever since.
Been there, part of the furniture. So obviously you've been there, and you I think you were at HP as an engineer. So you started out in engineering, and then obviously you moved into products, and you've been in product for a long, long time now, haven't you?
Most of my career has been product management and product marketing. But yes, I did start as, actually, believe it or not, as a chip designer.
Really? Yes. Crikey. So you were very much on the hardware side of things, and obviously, worked across from hardware infrastructure and software. Obviously, working with HP, getting that grounding, which is a great grounding for many, many people. What sort of made you move from engineering into the product world?
What I realized is in engineering, I knew a lot about a very narrow topic. And what I seemed to enjoy was to know a little about a lot of things. And that's what drove me to shift to product management. And by shifting to product management, I got a exposure to the sales side, to the engineering side, to the marketing side, to the operations side, finance, which is something I really enjoyed. So more of a jack of all as opposed to, master of one.
It's funny because I think obviously this isn't your first rodeo. So you founded a business before, which we'll talk about in a second, which you obviously successfully sold as well. I don't actually meet many people that found businesses from the product side. They're often engineered to their core, or they're sales guys, really. Do you think coming from products and with that breadth of experience that you just referred to, do you think that gives you a slight advantage or a different sort of bird's eye view to setting up a business?
I think it does. I think it does, because depending on your perspective, you're always approaching things differently. So if you come from an engineering point of view, it's always about the technology. If it's from the sales point of view, it's always about getting the deal. I think what I bring to the table is looking at the customer requirements. What is the problem and what is the best way to solve that problem? So I think in that sense, I don't know if it's better than the other two perspectives, but it is different.
Absolutely. And well, like you say, whether it's better or not, it is different and different to others, and therefore could be deemed as an advantage, which you never know. And obviously, I've just referred to the fact that you founded a business previously, obviously, and successfully sold. You able to give us a bit of an overview of that organization and how that came about?
Yeah, so my current co-founder, Sriram, and I started a company way back. This is 2001, along with some others. So there were other co-founders as well. That was a 10 gig Ethernet SmartNIC or a DPU. And we started in 2001. The company was sold successfully in 2006 to Emulex, which was a public company in the fiber channel space. And it was a great ride at Emulex. We went from not being in Ethernet at all as Emulex to becoming number one in just a few years. And eventually Emulex was sold to Broadcom. So it was a great experience, but I often joke with Sriram that we were maybe just 15 years too early. And now DPUs are the rage.
Absolutely. And I mean, maybe early, but what a learning experience. And, all that you've learned to obviously help with where you are today as well. I mean, over the years, your experience has been broad. So it's networking, it's connectivity, it's monitoring. You've also got into storage as well, haven't you? So you've worked within the storage space. So you really have worked across, the infrastructure layers, the software layers. That, I suppose, again, gives you that broad perspective when it comes to working with some of the new up and coming hyperscalers and cloud providers, across the globe.
Absolutely. I think Sriram comes from the same background. So between us, we have deep sort of infrastructure background. So storage, networking, host-based technologies, so all of these nitty-gritty details like InfiniBand and SRIOV and MIG, and we're super comfortable with that. And along with that, both of us also have cloud background. So in the 2010s, we were mostly working on cloud technologies. So the combination of cloud technologies and low-level infrastructure, I think, gives us a unique perspective and hopefully an advantage in the current endeavor.
Absolutely. And just to close off the point around your first entrepreneurship in 2001 and then selling in, I think, said 2006. What was the secret sauce to the success, so to speak, in actually, the idea of a business, then actually getting it operational and getting it fit for somebody to want to come and buy it? Was there sort of key things that you did that you think actually sort of set the tone for your success there?
I think in hindsight, what happened was Emulex had a gap in their roadmap. And what was happening was that the storage area network was moving from fiber channel to Ethernet. And that was the single biggest thing that drove them to acquire us, because they realized that if they were going to be a fiber channel only company, they would be dead in a few years. So I think in hindsight, that's what happened. Commercially, I think it was a great learning experience. I think like I said, I think we mistimed the market. The market was not ready for DPUs and SmartNICs way back then. But the fact that storage area networks were moving to Ethernet sort of made the thing happen.
Absolutely. And again, what a learning experience to get you where you are today. So obviously, you also then went into, I think it's Mirantis, so open source organization, Kubernetes. Your role there was running the product function, wasn't it? And I think you went into the product marketing. So how did that sort of help? Has that played a good part in obviously what you're doing today and what you learned?
Yes. That was the first time I shifted from product management to product marketing fully. So I'd always done a little bit of product marketing, because product management and product marketing are similar, sort of two sides of the same coin in some sense. But in Mirantis, I fully shifted to product marketing. And that really helped me, because it forces you to think, when do I have product market fit? And once I have product market fit, how do I scale? And that was the biggest learning from Mirantis. It was all about how to scale.
So obviously, how to scale, identifying the opportunity, get the product fit, scale. So you've got that there, and obviously building high-performing teams as well would have been part of that, I'm sure. So yeah, not a small role. So what did that sort of structure look like? Did you have product marketeers underneath you? Was it marketing specialists, or did you have product managers as well?
So in Mirantis, product management was a distinct role. So I had product marketing and technical marketing folks in my team.
And how did you get them working to your strategy? Because I think, one thing being able to execute it yourself, but actually leading and creating a high-performing team and actually achieving those goals, you can't do it all by yourself, particularly an organization like that. So what did you do to actually get that team working with the business?
I think I've found over a period of time that the best way to align the team is to share the big picture with them. If you're too tactical and you say, I'd like you to go do this, then it in such a creative, high technology environment, it doesn't work. So I think the single biggest thing is to say, here are the customers we are going after. This is the qualification criteria. And once they're qualified, here are the tools. So if you walk through like say a buyer's journey, right? Awareness, and then further stages of engagement, then what are the tools that we have to create? And how do we train our sales team or demand gen team on those tools? So once I think I was able to share the big picture with the team, then everybody sort of operates on their own. And it's just some light layer of oversight as opposed to really getting in and telling them on a daily basis what to do.
I think it sounds obvious, doesn't it? But I mean, how many times do we hear that leadership doesn't get that, doesn't get the staff on the journey, doesn't do the big picture talk, doesn't actually allow the staff to take their head up, lift their head up and actually see what the goal is. They're just in the weeds and they're constantly getting drowning. So yeah, it does make total sense. So also with that experience, then you then moved on. You founded Aarna in 2017, I think it was.
So we did Sriram and I did get back sort of the band together in 2018, but we did consulting for a couple of years. So the product version of the company really started in 2020.
Okay. So 2020, it really kicked off.
Yeah.
So it got big. And in terms, obviously, from where you've come from, again, starting a business in 2020, that's a tricky time.
It was
that's a tricky time, no matter what you're doing, really, unless you're selling PPE. So
exactly.
so it's obviously you can't plan for these things, for sure. I mean, did that have an impact on actually getting started, and how did you find? I suppose because it did affect so many people. It affected us in my business. Starting a business, how did you stay motivated and clearly focused to actually grow the company when obviously the whole world was sort of battening down the hatches in many respects?
It actually, believe it or not, worked to our advantage. The whole remote work, the whole work from home, and the reason is before 2020, customers would ask us, "Do you have on-site? Do you have a presence in the country?" So if you were engaged with a customer in say Latin America, they would say, "Who do you have on the ground in Latin America?" And that's very difficult for a startup, right? If you're trying to pursue customers in like Korea, in Japan, in Latin America, how do you put people in all these geographies? And before 2020, I would say that would put a startup at a huge disadvantage to an established large company. But come 2020, nobody asks us that question anymore. Do you have people in the geography? And believe it or not, that question hasn't come up ever since. So even now, Nobody asked us that. So I think that was a big advantage of sort of this remote work. And yes, there was I think a 3-6 month period where everybody sort of went into deep conservative mode, and there was no spending at all. But by the end of 2020, things opened up, and customers wanted partners, solutions, and I think that helped us. That helped us because the spending was there. Customers were comfortable with remote partners, small partners who didn't have people in the geography, and that was us.
Makes perfect sense. And in terms of, obviously, you're helping the GPU players out there, and there's, as you know, there's a lot of them. We've talked about it before, and I've talked about it with your colleagues. There's a lot of them popping up, in America, in Europe, also over in APAC now as well, an awful lot. And your platform is designed to help with the orchestration, NVIDIA, but you're looking also beyond NVIDIA as well, are you? Is that right? So you're looking at just GPUs in general, so it could be AMD as well.
Yes, we are taking a fairly broad view because I think in training it'll largely be concentrated to NVIDIA and to some degree AMD. But I think on the inferencing side, it's going to be a lot more diverse in terms of the ecosystem. And there's going to be a lot more sort of non-GPU solutions. Let's call them accelerators, right? Different types of accelerators. So we are architecturally taking a fairly broad view. Today we support NVIDIA. I mean, it makes logical sense. But from an software architecture point of view, we are agnostic. So we want to be heterogeneous.
And obviously, you have a very close relationship with NVIDIA as well. And obviously built that sort of alliance and that partnership there. How are you scaling your business? So you're largely going through partners. Are you going direct to end users as well, or is it very much the partner route?
So we are actually going direct for now, because if you look at the number of GPU as a service providers / in the NVIDIA language, they'd be called NCPs, right? NVIDIA Cloud Partners. So if you look at GPU as a service AI cloud providers / NCPs, they're in the hundreds. So we're not talking about thousands, tens of thousands of customers. And even out of the hundreds, if you look at the ones that are at scale and who need a cloud layer to offer on-demand instances, maybe is 50 to 100. So we're not talking about a very large number of customers. And therefore, for now, we are going direct. We do anticipate that this software will be needed by enterprises also. And at that time, we will go through partners. But I think we are seeing the demand with AI cloud providers first, and maybe the enterprise demand will pick up next year. So for now, we are just focusing on the cloud service providers.
And in terms of obviously the ones that you're targeting, I suppose there are some out there the true hyperscalers, the massive ones. They've got their own, their own software, but actually the more startups, the more challengers is where you're sort of looking to work with.
Yes, you're exactly right. The hyperscalers, and I would say also some of the bigger players in the US, the CoreWeaves, the Lambdas, they all have in-house solutions, right? There was nothing else, so they've just built software in-house. But the new wave of AI cloud providers coming up, they really have a decision to make. All right, make the standard make versus buy decision, and there are pros and cons to both. If they choose to do it in-house, it requires a dev team, it requires investment, but then they have full control over the software. The case for a buy is they get to market quickly, they don't need a dev team, and now they can focus on upper layers, which lead to differentiation. So they can focus on model as a service, they can focus on RAG, they can focus on PaaS layers like vector databases, LLM ops pipelines, MLOps pipelines, as opposed to working on the infra layer, which in our view is fairly generic. So you can't really differentiate your AI cloud based on, better sort of infrastructure as a service. But every AI cloud provider will have to make that decision of make versus buy, and we are hoping that the new crop will primarily go towards buy.
If they end up trying to build it in, like you say, there's so many other things they need to be focused on. So focusing on just trying, and it doesn't really save them money in the long run either. I mean, I appreciate they might have full control, but again, by working closely with your team, there's a degree of control there by working really closely with you anyway, and bringing you into the partnership.
Exactly.
And in terms of obviously, the offering that you have, and obviously there's other organisations perhaps doing something similar. What separates you from maybe the competition? So, have you done anything that particularly gives you that sort of competitive edge?
I think the competitive edge comes from scale testing, in our view. This piece of software is very difficult to test because let's say you want to establish that our cloud management software can operate up to, pick a number, 8,000 GPUs, right? Who is going to give us 8,000 GPUs for testing? Even the conversation is a non-starter.
I'd like to in the room when you tried having it, to be fair.
So the trick is, who can prove that their software scales without actually having 8,000, 16,000 GPUs? So it has to be done through digital twins. So you have to simulate that whole methodology. So we've been working on that concept for about 2 years now. So I think if you were to say, what's the competitive edge, I would say that's one competitive edge. The other competitive edge is to look at day 2 operations. So day 0 is the easiest. You could literally create a bunch of Ansible scripts to set up tenants and do the initial day 0 isolation. And that's where a lot of customers start. They're like, I think we can do it in-house. But then when they start looking at day 2 issues, how are you going to do upgrades? How are you going to find faults? How are you going to correlate faults? How are you going to repair around and work around faults? That's when the true value of the product sort of shines. So I would say one is scale testing. The other is sort of deeply technical day 2 operations. And we think fault is a big one because unless you can repair your cloud in a specific amount of time, you're not going to hit your availability or uptime SLAs. And for a AI cloud provider, that could mean unhappy customers, best case. Worst case, it could mean issuing credits, which takes away from, the bottom line.
Absolutely. And in terms of obviously with where you are, so there's your competitive edge. You're clear on what your solution is. Previously, you felt that you were too early in the marketplace. I think we're probably very clear that we're on the right time now. It is the market to be in, whether you're actually a GPU provider or whether you're supplying into it. What do you think the sort of future looks like then over the next sort of year or two? Because I think 5 years, we're not even going to be able to, I think nobody's got an idea what it's going to look like in 5 years. It's just moving too much. But have you got a view on the market in the next 12, 18 months and how you guys are going to adapt to that?
Yeah, I think there are certain forces that work in our favor and then certain that work against us. I think the forces that work in our favor are the rise of inferencing. I think unless people who are doing the training start monetizing through inferencing, they're all going to, go out of business. So I think inferencing has to take off in 2025. And inferencing means on-demand instances. So that's very favorable for us. I think another trend that's favorable for us is aging GPUs. So once Blackwell comes out, the training crowd will jump to Blackwell. And now what do you do with your, H100s? And so now they have to be provided to on-demand customers increasingly for things like inferencing, fine tuning, maybe small language models. So we think those two trends are working hugely in our favor as the next 12 months, 18 months transpire. The one force that's probably going to work against us is I do feel that the market is a little frothy. And, there are a lot of GPU as a service providers that are mushrooming. There is going to be consolidation. It has to. I mean, it has to happen. So I think that'll probably work somewhat against us. But I'm hoping that the accelerators will overcome the inhibitors for us.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think, with the amount of GPUs coming up, businesses, it's not a cheap game to get yourself into. So, we're seeing a lot of them waiting for investment, going through those different investment rounds. Whilst they're doing that, they're leaning things up. So, hopefully, next year when we see the investors jumping in, they've already spent lots on it already. That's when we're going to start seeing, things for yourself, things for us. We're getting a little bit quieter now, just the nature of the beast. But it does make a difference. And I suppose that contributes to obviously, being a bit frothy, as you say. In terms of your organisation, then, what's it like? I mean, obviously, you're a few years old now. You started in sort of in and around COVID. You're in a great market. You've got, guys in the US. I think you've got people in Singapore. You've got people in India as well. So you're a truly sort of global team.
Yeah.
How's that sort of working for you? Because obviously beforehand, I think you were largely US based, but you've got a global organization. All your development teams in India, I think.
Development team is in India. Yeah. So we've actually always been split like that because my co-founder Sriram, he moved to India way back in 2005. He used to be in the Bay Area, but he moved back to Bangalore. So he's basically been able to build a team largely with a lot of contacts. So people who have worked for him in the past have ended up joining us. And a lot of other people have joined through references, friend of friend type of a situation. So for us, I think the remote structure works fine because we essentially started in COVID. So even the people who are in the same geography would always be on Zoom calls. So that works perfect for us. It does mean mornings and evenings are just jam-packed, both sides, because that's when we get overlap in terms of discussions. But other than that, I think it works fine.
And in terms of obviously your technical teams are over in India. In the US, it's largely more the client facing, the go-to-market teams,
Exactly.
Or is it a bit of a spread? Yeah.
It's all go-to-market. The dev team is all in India.
Absolutely. So, and how do you, in terms of the way you operate in your structure, obviously you're working remotely. You're doing the late and the early sort of Zoom calls and what have you. How do you actually maintain a culture in an organization that's largely through looking through a box?
I think it goes back to the discussion we had about sort of Mirantis. I feel it's very important for the team to know the big picture. And that requires a lot more effort than you might imagine, because in a startup, the big picture is constantly morphing, right? The GPU space is moving so quickly, even for large companies. Forget small companies. Even large companies have to adapt so quickly. For a small company, things are moving at warp speed. So I think the biggest challenge I see in running organization that's spread out in this way is to continually keep communicating the vision and saying, okay, guys, this is what we are doing and this is why it makes sense. And then everybody has to figure out their own sort of course and say, okay, how do I fit into the big picture? So I think that philosophy, I think, has served us well.
I can see that, and that's something that we do here. We do quarterly meetings, and we don't just talk about the past. We talk about where we're heading. And we talk about why we're going in that direction. And if we're going to pivot our strategy, they need to understand why we're pivoting the strategy as well. And it's crucial. It really, really is. So in terms of obviously the future, you mentioned about, where the opportunities may lie. You mentioned where the risk may well be for you guys as well. The strategy now is global domination, is obviously targeting the startups and the scale ups, the challenger sort of GPU businesses. Is there any sort of exciting upcoming events or anything that you're particularly focusing on in the next 12 months?
I would say there is one mega trend that we haven't talked about, which I think also could be a big one for us. And that's the concept of massive peaks and valleys in inferencing workloads. So I was talking to a machine learning expert, and what they were telling me is that in web scale applications, you have a steady state, and then you might have some spikes. But in inferencing, it's going to be peaks and valleys, both. So what that means is, let's say you are a AI cloud provider in, just pick a geography, Indonesia, just for lack of a better example. And your mean consumption, your average consumption is 1,000 GPUs. But the valley is 200 and the peak is 2,000. Now, what do? Do you buy 2,000 GPUs and mostly stay idle at 50% utilization? Do you buy 200 and turn away all your other customers who want more than 200? Or do you buy 1,000? And I mean, it's just a difficult situation. If you are a hyperscaler, you are fine because you have so many regions around the world that different regions can absorb each other's peaks and valleys. But if you're a GPU as a service provider in one geography, what do? So what we envision is the need for AI cloud providers to trade capacity. So call it airline code sharing, right? So two airlines that are in different geographies will often do code shares, and you have a United ticket, but the plane is actually Lufthansa. So same thing, you might be working with a GPU service provider in Indonesia, but the actual GPU capacity may come from a service provider across the world. Now, of course, I'm assuming that latency and other things are not a big concern. If they are, then the scheme doesn't work. But we see that the need to trade capacity will be a big mega trend. And so what we are also doing is we are putting in the capability of cloud brokering in our cloud management software product, so that GPU as a service A, provider A, and B can now become partners and trade capacity to absorb each other's peaks and valleys. And so it's sort of a marketplace. And through the marketplace, multiple geography-centric AI cloud providers can now collaborate, trade capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking to various clients over the last sort of few weeks and months, and that seems to be very much within that sort of strategy there. So, like you say, you've got different parts of the world, when they go to sleep, they've got their GPUs just sitting there idle, doing nothing. Whereas actually another part of the world can be using them. It makes total sense, doesn't it? Really, and it goes back to actually a more sustainable way of working too.
Yes,
because they are there, which again, when you talk to the GPU providers, that is a theme that is very close to their hearts at the moment, as is their end clients. So contributing in that way. So you're going to tie that into your service offering.
Yes, the product is going to have a brokering layer above the cloud management software layer. So we'll have an intent layer, a brokering layer, and then the rest of the cloud management software. And the intent layer will let the user define attributes of what they want: latency attributes, geography attributes, data center tier attributes. So if you are latency sensitive, then we are not going to give an Indonesian customer a GPU from the US. But if you're not latency sensitive, then you can grab a GPU from anywhere in the world. So we'll have the intent layer, then the brokering layer underneath for exactly the use case I mentioned. And then below that will be the cloud management software layer that will give you on-demand, bare metal, virtual machine, container instances that are fully isolated.
Fantastic. That's a clever piece. Clever product offering there, to be fair. And as you know, you're speaking to your clients. That's exactly what they're interested in, isn't it?
Yep.
So in terms of, obviously, that's key, that being clear on where you're trying to get to, which you've talked about, and knowing where your market is, listening to your clients. We don't get everything right, do we? We do make mistakes when we're setting up businesses. And it's a daunting thing. And obviously, this is your second time now running a business. Obviously, a lot of the people that are going to be listening to this or watching this, these could be, budding CEOs. They could be engineers with an idea that are looking to do their own startup. We're seeing startups all the time now. What sort of advice would you give to somebody that is, very, very early in that sort of journey, to going on to founding their own business?
I think the first order of business is to decide what kind of a startup you want to set up. And broadly speaking, venture capitalists split startups into two: faster, better, cheaper, and brave new world. So faster, better, cheaper is you go to an existing market and you take a widget and make it better. So let's say you've been working in, I'll just make it up, cloud backup, like storage backup for 15 years. You have deep insight into it. You know all the things that don't work well. So you go start a company that makes the next version of cloud storage backup. So that's the faster, better, cheaper. And there, I think the dynamics are so different than the brave new world. In brave new world, you're going into an uncertain market with uncertain customer requirements with a new product. So it's literally, crazy situation where everything is changing all the time. So Sriram and I are more of the brave new world people, and sometimes I wonder why. And I think in the brave new world, it's a balance. It's all a balancing act. So we have to make sure that there is a real pain point that we are solving with our product. So the advice I would give is don't even build a product. Don't even build a prototype. Just establish that there is a real pain point and that your offering is solving that real pain point first. I think if that's not established, there's no point in wasting time building a prototype. And I see that a lot of entrepreneurs make that mistake. They're like, oh my God, I have to spend 9 months, build a prototype, and then I'll start engaging with customers. So don't do that. The second thing about the balance is staying true to your vision versus pivoting. And what you'll find in a brave new world is you're constantly pivoting, you're mini pivoting all the time, literally all the time. Because like I said, if you had talked a year ago, the GPU world looked so different. And we've learned so much, things have changed. So the customers are adapting, the market is changing. So we have to constantly keep adapting. So we can stay true to the overall vision of sort of cloud management software, but the particulars of what we're doing and what exact problem are we solving and what features are we emphasizing, we have to keep tuning that and pivoting all the time. So I think it's a balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to talk about, particularly within tech startups, building the product before they've even realized there's a huge need. They just think, oh, people will buy that.
Yeah.
But actually going out to market, understanding the challenges, understanding what, finding the solution to a problem and really getting the engagement and the interest, then going in and investing the money and the time. So I can see that making absolute, and like you say, being able to pivot. The market does change a lot. So, and as we've seen over the last year, so completely agree. So, well, look, I think that's pretty much us done now. I think we've run out of a little bit of time. Look, it's been really enjoyable getting to know you, know what's going on in the business, where you're heading, where the opportunities lie as well. I mean, that's been really fascinating to see where you think it could end up. The market is definitely going to be evolving over the next 12 months. So the fact that you're used to pivoting, I'm sure you will. But look, really enjoyed having you on the show. I think for that reason, we definitely need to invite you back again in a year and just reflect
compare
on what
notes.
we've learned. And compare notes entirely. But look, thank you very, very much. It's been really enjoyable, and we'll get you on next year as well to talk about it.
Likewise, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much, Nick.
Right, cheers for your time. Thank you. Take care.
All right, see you.